There's something oddly calming about demolition, order and destruction, but sometimes that order turns chaotic. Explosives misfire, buildings tilt the wrong way, entire structures refuse to fall. What's supposed to be a clean removal of the past to make space for the present turns into chaos. Sudden, violent, and absolutely unscripted. These are 5 demolitions that went from satisfying to catastrophic in seconds. Number 5. In Kankiri, Turkey, an 80-foot flour factory built in 1928 was set to be erased from history. The building had stood empty for decades, crumbling in silence. When the demolition team arrived, the plan was simple: weaken the foundation, plant explosives, and bring the structure down in a controlled collapse. But when the charges went off, something completely unexpected happened. The building didn't fall straight down. It didn't crumble. It rolled. Yes, rolled. Like a giant concrete log. The entire structure pivoted on its weakened side, slowly tipping onto its roof. Windows shattered, the metal frame groaned, and it thudded to the ground upside down. It missed a nearby row of apartments by less than 20 feet. Residents screamed from balconies, watching the slow-motion disaster unfold right outside their windows. Miraculously, no one was hurt. But the error was clear. Engineers had underestimated the building's internal weight distribution and the strength of its rear supports. What they expected to fall vertically instead pivoted like a seesaw. What looked like a clean job on paper turned into a public embarrassment and a terrifying near miss. Number 4. In Pontiac, Michigan, the iconic Silverdome was finally facing its end. Once the proud home of the Detroit Lions and host to everything from WrestleMania to World Cup matches, the stadium had stood empty for years, its roof sagging and seats gathering dust. In 2017, the demolition team prepared for a dramatic implosion that would bring down the massive upper structure in one swift, explosive moment. At precisely 8:30 a.m., the countdown began. Hundreds watched from nearby parking lots as charges wired through the stadium's structural supports were set off. A deafening boom echoed through the area. Then, nothing. Dust clouds rose. A few metal beams twisted. But incredibly, the Silverdome was still standing. What had just happened? Engineers quickly realized that roughly 10% of the explosives had failed to detonate. The charges that were supposed to weaken the key support columns had either misfired or didn't go off at all. The upper ring of the stadium, designed to collapse inward, stubbornly held its ground. Instead of a spectacular implosion, spectators witnessed what looked like a dud. The failed demolition instantly went viral. Memes flooded social media, but for the crew on site, it was no joke. They had to regroup, reassess the structure's unexpected resilience, and plan a follow-up demolition. Over the next several months, the job was completed piece by piece. The Silverdome's resistance became a symbol of how unpredictable large-scale demolitions can be, even when every calculation is double-checked. Despite modern explosives and decades of experience, it stood tall for one last round before finally giving in. Number 3. In Pell City, Alabama, the demolition of a towering smokestack took a back-to-basics approach. No explosives, no wrecking ball, just a backhoe, an operator, and a plan to manually chip away at the base until the structure gave out under its own weight. That plan nearly ended in tragedy. As the excavator worked methodically around the base, the massive stack began to lean. A quiet rumble grew into a roar. For a moment, it looked like everything was going according to plan, the stack falling in a safe direction. But then it pivoted and came crashing down directly on top of the backhoe. The massive structure engulfed the machine in concrete and dust. For agonizing seconds, nobody moved. Witnesses feared the worst. Then, out of the mangled steel and debris, the operator climbed out, but breathing. The machine's reinforced cabin had likely saved his life. What went wrong? The lack of controlled explosives meant the smokestack didn't have a predefined fall pattern. Wind, weight, and asymmetrical erosion at the base had caused it to veer off course at the last moment.
I've had some stuff go wrong, but not like this.
After 2 failed attempts to bring down the Avondale Mills smokestack in front of an eager audience, Tim Pfeiffer took matters into his own hands.
They can't go forward as long as that thing's standing up because it wasn't structurally sound anymore. I was safer inside the cab than coming out of it.
His daughter says she plans to make sure her dad has many safer years ahead of him.
I'm gonna go and I'm gonna bring 2 hard hats for him and be like, come on, Dad. Like, I might wrap them up in bubble wrap next time.
Number 2. In the heart of Shenyang, China, a city packed tight with high-rises and narrow streets, the demolition of the Xiang building wasn't going to be simple. With neighboring buildings just meters away, engineers opted for a classic approach: the wrecking ball. It's slow, deliberate, and precise. At least when everything goes according to plan. But as the demolition crew got to work, swinging the heavy ball into the concrete shell of the building, onlookers quickly realized something odd. The wrecking ball chewed through one side, collapsing chunks of the facade and interior walls. But then, it stopped. Half the building was gone. The other half stood awkwardly upright, like a sliced cake with one side untouched. Was it a failure, or was it deliberate? Speculation spread. Some believed the partial demolition was a miscalculation, the crew underestimating the strength of internal supports. But others argued it was completely intentional, a calculated move to avoid triggering vibrations or collateral damage to tightly packed neighboring structures. In dense cities like Shenyang, a full collapse can do more harm than good. What made it even more remarkable was that no one was hurt. No debris launched into traffic, no secondary damage, just a half-demolished skeleton standing beside untouched buildings like an unfinished project frozen in time. Photos of the lopsided remains went viral, sparking debate about whether it was a stroke of caution or a visible error. Either way, it showed one thing clearly. In urban demolition, brute force isn't always the answer. Sometimes what looks like a mistake might actually be a strategy. Or maybe it's both. Building number 1 in Dallas, Texas, a routine demolition turned into a local sensation and an engineering punchline. In 2020, crews set out to bring down an 11-story office building to make way for a massive $2.5 billion redevelopment project. The plan was straightforward: bring the entire structure down in a clean implosion and begin clearing the site for residential, commercial, and entertainment spaces. The explosion went off. Most of the building crumbled as expected, but one part stood defiantly upright: the elevator shaft. Built with extra reinforcement to support the lift mechanism, the shaft had stronger concrete, denser steel, and a stubborn attitude. It didn't just stay standing, it leaned, like a confused skyscraper trying to resist gravity. Within hours, locals gave it a name: the Leaning Tower of Dallas. People gathered to take selfies. Social media lit up with memes. Some residents even started a petition to preserve it as a permanent monument. But for the demolition crew and developers, it was a headache. The shaft had to be cleared, or the entire redevelopment would stall. Wrecking crews returned with a massive ball, hammering at the shaft for days. But even that wasn't easy. It took nearly 2 full weeks to finally bring the stubborn tower down. What was meant to be a quick job turned into a viral embarrassment and a lesson. Sometimes the part of the building you least expect to resist becomes the last one standing. Demolition is rarely just destruction. It's precision, timing, and trust in the materials. And in Dallas, one concrete core made it very clear: it wasn't going down without a fight. Demolitions are thrilling to watch, but terrifying when they go wrong. These weren't small errors. They were massive structures doing unpredictable things: concrete flying, buildings leaning, lives nearly lost. Each failure taught a brutal lesson. You're not in control, gravity is, and when you try to outsmart it, you better not miss.